Hi, I'm Kathryn Lafond and I'm coming to you from Bainbridge Island in my home kitchen today. Our experience today is going to be fermented pickles. They'll end up in the refrigerator, but for right now we're going to look at what goes in fermented pickles. And we're going to begin by the soaking of the pickles in ice water to crisp them up. And so my process now is to drain them and get them in a colander and have them be ready to roll for when we begin to stuff our jar. Over here, so now we're going to go over and see what we've done to prepare our brine. And this is going to be a salt brine. We're not using vinegar in these pickles as they're fermented, and they'll be going on the kitchen counter for a while to get that tanginess to them before they go in the refrigerator. So in our brine, I went with the process of 1 teaspoon per cup of sea salt. And I could have also used a kosher salt, but I chose to use a Himalayan or a sea salt. And what I have in here is actually 12 cups. So I used 4 tablespoons of salt. That's just cooling down right now, but it's already come up to a boil. We've prepared as well garlics, a little peppercorn, allspice, a few dried peppers, and coriander. And these are sprigs of fresh fennel. I've also got of dill that we'll be cutting from to go in our layered effect as well. Oop. Got a bit of onion here. And I always enjoy onion rings in our pickles because any kind of vegetable that you pickle has its own unique flavors, and onion rings are one of the favorites of our family. So here we are outside. I've already collected some grape leaves, which will be added to the layering in our jar. And I'm going to just snip a few bay as well. Both are adding tannin to our pickles. They help with the flavoring and to keep the skins from getting too soft on our pickles. Okay, we're back in the kitchen. I'm just pulling the bay off its stem and making sure we didn't bring any critters in with us. I wanted to say when I gathered the fennel sprigs, I really had to be careful because the honeybees were loving them. And I did ask permission from the bees and the fennel if it would be okay if we use those. And so we're going to begin with our layering in our vessel. And this is about a gallon-sized vessel. I put a grape leaf on the bottom. I think I might add a couple of fennel to that as well. And then what I was taught years ago was if I poke my pickle, the fermentation can get in a little quicker. And so that was how I've always done it since. And what I did choose this time was a gherkin pickle. Other times I've raised a kind of a real prickly, nubby type of pickling cucumber. This one was recommended to me this year. But most of these are, say, about a 4-inch. And when they're about the same size, that makes it easier to go through this process because they're fermenting at about the same rate then. And I want to fit them in as best I can so I can get as many in as possible. So we'll take a quick look at this so you can see them fitted into the base. We're going to add a few garlics, a pinch of our peppercorns, of our coriander, allspice. We'll go ahead and put these in. I'm going to add a sprig or 2 of fennel, and then snip dill to make sure I've got dill in here so that we actually have dill pickles in the end. And the last thing that I'll drop into this will be my onion rings. And then we begin again with the next layer using our grape leaves and our bay.
Do you want to stop?
I'm always trying to get as many layers in here as I can. So I try to press it down and then attempt to put maybe one smaller layer of pickles, cukes on the top as my finale. But I'm going to have to be able to have the broth or the brine come up to the top. It looks like I've hit my limit. And you see I have a few left. I'm going to drop in a few more pieces of garlic that might still fit. I'm probably not going to get another layer of onions, but I could add a few more peppercorns. In total, I've probably added about 1 tablespoon of coriander, 1 tablespoon of pepper, and probably a couple teaspoons of allspice. So as you can see, I've covered it to the best of my ability. And then I'm going to add another cover too. But let's begin this process of adding the brine. And I have a sense that I should do it slowly in order to see what I have here, what it will take. And if you look really closely, you can see how it's starting to soak in and come up the sides. Just pouring it in would not work, or I would overflow, and I do need to take bubbles out as I go, so I want to pay attention to when it gets near the top. We're just using one of the ways to release any bubbles that might be in here, because then the brine can go a little bit lower. Then I can see what I've got. I notice when I can get my chopstick all the way down that some of the bubbles come up. And then that allows me to add just a wee bit more brine to our container. The last step is to weight this down so it can do its work. And I'm actually going to put it in a vessel that as the bubbles come up, as it's fermenting, that this brine won't end up all over the counter or the shelf. And so I went outside, and I'm telling you, this is getting heavy now, but even heavier now. I went outside and I gathered a rock that I could use as my weight. Just about perfect, because I want it to seal enough, and it's already starting to rise up over the edge, but I don't want air getting in there. And so here we have it. If I had not done the final load, I would have maybe used a plug by putting water in a Ziploc and centering that on top as the weight into it. But I think that this is going to do. Our last step is to get this into a dark location, and since the pantry is pretty full, I'm going to cover it with a towel and put it in the corner of the counter here in the kitchen. In about 4 days, we're going to check it, and see how the brine is doing and enjoy our first crisp pickle before it goes in the fridge. Enjoy!